I realized that saving money was actually ruining my chances at achieving financial freedom. Like 8 years ago, I was trapped in a job that I absolutely hated, so I started saving every single penny that I could to create like a safety net in order to quit. But month after month, I felt like I was still barely making any progress, and the more money that I saved, the more time that passed, the more that I wanted to give up. Until I realized that saving more is not better, but saving more effectively is the real cheat code. So today I want to share 3 ways that saving less money can actually be more effective to build wealth. The first mistake you're making is trying to save too much. Let's say John earns $60,000 a year or $5,000 a month, and this is what his expenses looks like for the month. He pays $4,000 for his rent, which include utilities. He pays around $600 for groceries and dining out, $400 for his transportation, $35 for his coffee addiction, $65 for his monthly entertainment, and $25 just for his gym membership. So every month, John ends up spending $5,125, and since his income is $5,000 a month, he technically is overspending by $125 every single month. Obviously, this isn't the greatest situation for John right now, and he knows this, right? So he starts doing what you would probably do, right? He starts cutting out all these little expenses that makes his life happy. Right? $35 for coffee, gone. $65 that he spends on entertainment a month, gone. That $25 gym membership, gone. And now when we look at his budget, it breaks even, right? He's spending as much money as he makes. But John now lives a very sad, very boring, and very unsustainable lifestyle. I mean, all he does now is basically go to work, eat, and sleep. And worst of all, John isn't making any meaningful financial changes in the grand scheme of things. Unfortunately, you're probably just like John. You probably follow outdated money advice from old money gurus who think that the only thing that's preventing you from becoming a millionaire and achieving financial freedom is that $5 iced coffee and avocado toast that you apparently keep buying. But that money advice doesn't work anymore. It's old and outdated. Instead, a better and newer way to look at this is I want you to apply this concept called the Pareto principle, which roughly states that 80% of the results that you get come from about 20% of the causes. Basically, most of your results come from just a few key things. And we can see this applied in real life. So if you think about it, like go back to your closet, your wardrobe, you probably only wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. Or go back to work meetings, right? 80% of the information that you actually need to know for your job probably comes from 20% of the 1-hour meetings, and everything else is just a waste of time. Even with your own expenses, most of your expenses probably come from just a few spending categories. So in John's example, his housing expense takes up nearly 80% of his budget at $4,000 a month. So instead of using all his mental energy and doing mental gymnastics and willpower to try to cut out all the little joys in his life, what if he just focused on this? What if he just focused on that 80%? What if John moved somewhere that was a lot cheaper, or he decided to get a roommate or start dating someone seriously for the long term, so now that he can split rent now and he only has to pay $2,000 for housing, which frees up that other $2,000 a month. This one single change not only solves his overspending problem, but it also gives him enough extra money to start saving and investing without having to cut out all the things that make him happy. The trick to saving more effectively is you need to optimize your savings while at the same time keeping your lifestyle disruptions to a minimum. And it just takes 3 steps to do this. The first step, and this part is gonna take a little bit of work, but honestly, once you do this, everything else, step 2 and step 3 becomes a lot easier. So basically, you wanna categorize your expenses to identify where most of your money is being spent. You can do this in any spreadsheet or honestly any piece of paper that you have lying around. If you want the spreadsheet that I use for free, I'll leave a link to it down below. The second step is to ignore the categories that barely make up your overall expenses. So think about categories if they contribute less than 20% of your overall spending, you can just ignore them. If you're using my spreadsheet, just click on filter and then sort from highest to lowest expenses, and it'll do this automatically for you. The third step is to focus all your undivided attention on the top categories at the top on the spreadsheet, and then start exploring and diving deep on how you can reduce those expenses. The point is, you gotta stop spending your energy and your effort and your time trying to save on things that barely move the needle, and instead start focusing your undivided attention on the few big items. The second mistake you're making when you're trying to save money is, and this is gonna sound contradictory to the first point, but just bear with me, it's gonna all make sense. The second mistake is that you're focusing too much on your budget and not the plot. And I know this is profound, I know. What I mean is that you're focusing too much on your goal and not enough on the big picture. All right, so let me just give you an example. When I realized that I wanted to quit my job on Wall Street, I knew internally that I need to start taking my savings a lot more seriously so that I can save enough in my emergency fund that I could live off afterwards after I quit. So I came up with a very strict monthly savings target. Let's just say it was $500. So I would basically tell myself, I have to save $500 every single month, no matter what. So every single month I would look at my budget and I would see what little tweaks I could make here and there in order to save more money. Like I remember this one time I was trying to buy a bunch of clothes online because I didn't want to go to the store. It was gonna be a couple $100s. And when I went to checkout, it showed that I needed to pay for shipping. And I was like, hell no, I am used to free shipping. So I spent the next hour or 2 hours looking on Twitter, formerly Twitter, Reddit, or whatever online forums, just to find a single coupon code that will help me save $5 on shipping. And I stuck with this and I kept saving for like 8 months or whatever, however long it took, right? And every single month that passed, right, I always felt like I was barely making any progress. And every single time, I always wanted to give up. The problem is I was so deep into the weed of it, right? I was trying to do all these tactical things to try to save $1, $2, $3 there that I completely lost the plot. Like what was I actually trying to do? What was I trying to achieve? And if you remember, the bigger picture here wasn't just trying to save $500 a month. The bigger picture here was to be able to safely quit my job. And the only way I can do that is if I had enough money in my emergency fund. I was so locked in on this monthly savings target that I completely forgot that there were other things that I could do to increase the amount of money that I had in my emergency fund other than saving. Things like working towards getting a raise or starting a side hustle to increase my income. One of the best ways that I found to never lose focus on the bigger picture or the plot is by following the 3-up rule, and here's basically how you do it. Step 1 is to just stop what you're doing. All right, take a pause, take a breath, and start writing down what you remember the bigger picture is. In my case, it wasn't the goal of saving $500 a month, right? The plot was, or the bigger picture was, to safely quit my job in a financially safe way, and to do that, I needed a big enough emergency fund. Step 2 is to start writing down all the things that you've currently been doing to try to achieve whatever goal you had. And then afterwards, right, and this is the most important step, is force yourself to come up with 3 uniquely different ways to achieve the bigger picture that is different from what you've already been doing. Step 3 is to now look at what you've currently been doing and compare it to the 3 new things that you could do and ask yourself, is the current way still the most effective path towards my bigger picture, or is it just the most obvious one? The point is, if you lock in way too much on your goal, you start to become oblivious to all the other levers that you can pull to achieve the bigger picture. Take a step back, take a breath, and start zooming out and up every so often. And just speaking of other levers that you can pull, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that you can actually earn money and rewards back every single time you buy something, which is basically like getting an immediate discount on it. For example, I spend about $100 a month on gas, but because I pay for the gas with my Gemini credit card, I get $4 back in Bitcoin. So I effectively got $100 worth of gas for $96. I've been a long-term investor in Bitcoin and Ethereum specifically for over 5 years now, and it's been great seeing Bitcoin grow from 20K to over 100K over the years. The great thing with this Bitcoin credit card is that it offers instant Bitcoin rewards on every purchase with no annual fees, so you get to instantly dollar cost average into Bitcoin for buying things that you were gonna buy anyway. You get up to 4% back on gas, transit, and rideshare, 3% on dining, 2% on groceries, and 1% on everything else. And you can use it anywhere MasterCard is accepted. If you're interested to sign up for the card, head to gemini.com/Vincent and get $200 in Bitcoin when you spend $3,000 in your first 90 days, or you can click the link in the description. See rates and fees in the description for more information, and thanks to Gemini for sponsoring this video. The next mistake you're making when you're trying to save money, and this is one of the most important ones, is that you're miscalculating the intangible benefits. And this is something that I am also still guilty of doing from time to time. But I've gotten a lot better since implementing the opportunity rule, Tima Maya Papaya. So I grew up with this thing called a scarcity mindset, and it's pretty common for people who didn't grow up with money. Also, if this is you, I just want you to pay special attention here. Even when I was a wee little lad, I was constantly stressed and worried about money because, and I remember very frequently, whenever I wanted to like buy things, right? Whether it was McDonald's or Ben & Jerry's ice cream because I saw someone at the school cafeteria eating it earlier, and I asked my mom, and without fail, my mom would always say, "We don't have any money." And it got so bad to the point that I would be like, "Oh, are we borderline broke? Are we gonna be living on the streets?" And that kind of scarce thinking, it sticks with you, right? It starts getting programmed inside of your head to the point that even when I was an adult and I had a really good job on Wall Street, I was still scared that everything I had and everything I worked towards was temporary. I get in my head and I start spiraling, and then I would think that, oh, I just got really lucky with this job. I just got really lucky with this paycheck, and my luck is gonna run out one day. So naturally, I would start developing this internal framework in my head on helping me decide what I would spend money on and what I would not spend money on, right? And one example was I would refuse to spend money on things that I didn't see an immediate tangible benefit in. For example, going to networking events or hanging out with coworkers at happy hour. I'd always come up with like the most random excuse. Oh, I can't go, I have some plans, but then I'll just go straight home and do nothing by myself for the rest of the evening, just because I didn't want to spend money. The problem is I was unintentionally self-sabotaging my future self because I was only focused on the tangible cost of going to these things and never accounted for the intangible benefits. Basically, there are two types of cost and benefits in life, right? There's tangible and intangible. Tangible costs and benefits, this is something that you can measure. Like you get a $1,000 raise, that is tangible. Intangible costs and benefits are things that can't easily be measured, right? Like with networking events. The tangible cost here are the $18 drinks in Manhattan. And if I don't go, the tangible benefit is I save $18. But where I messed up is not seeing the intangible benefits at networking events, right? So specifically the relationships and the conversations that you have that you otherwise can't have in an office environment, which could lead to a bunch of future intangible benefits, such as a job referral, a promotion, or a raise. If you're guilty of having a scarcity mindset like me, you need to start finding the right balance between being cost effective with your money and your time while still maximizing for the intangible benefits that comes with it. And it's the opportunity rule that helped me a lot with this. And thankfully, it just takes 3 steps. First, create an opportunity fund every single month, all right? This is a dedicated monthly budget that I set aside for myself for networking or education, basically anything that helps me build my future growth. And because this is a dedicated pile of money, I'm not gonna feel guilty for spending it. And again, if you want this spreadsheet for free, you can get it in the link down below. Number 2 is to be strategic about every opportunity that you come across or is presented before you and determine whether or not it aligns with your goals. For example, if you get invited to an event and you learn that the purpose of said event is just to party and get drunk, there's nothing wrong with that. You can go if you want, but maybe in these cases, the money that you spend here, it doesn't come from the opportunity fund and instead just comes from a portion of your income. And in that case, you want to start thinking twice whether or not you want to go. Remember, you can still go if you want. And step 3, when you are actually at these events that align with your goals, right? And I know this sounds a little bit tacky, but start treating this opportunity as a professional investment rather than just for fun, which means being hyper intentional about who you talk to, what you talk about, and actually making the intention and mental note to follow up on any connections that you make. The point is, the most expensive thing you can do is underspend on your future growth. When you're too afraid to invest in relationships, in yourself, in growth, you're essentially choosing to remain stuck. So when it comes to your money and your finances, what is the best way to get unstuck? Watch this video next where I show you exactly how to transform your finances in exactly 6.5 months.